they might show up yet.
They have phones.
Yeah, they have phones. But okay, so I've taken the lazy man's route here.
Yeah, we were wondering if you can put up the Tabula Mundi that we recommended. It is,
What was the Tabula Mundi?
we sent you the 4 cards. Now
At the end of last time, is that when you sent it?
yeah, we sent it last time, and maybe it was the time before, but you never showed it.
Okay. All right, let me just
We're a little
quickly
dehydrated.
let
No,
me-
we go like this to our lips, and it looks funny, and we noticed ourselves on screen.
Okay, I'm not looking at you at the moment because I'm looking at my email to see
because
if
we're dehydrated.
I can find.
Yeah, I gave you 4 cards on the Tabula Mundi, and
Did you call it the Tabula Mundi?
yes, I did.
Okay.
And this is based on the Thoth deck, and they do a lot of research. She uses I mean, these women are
Okay.
very sharp swords,
Right.
and they're the
Okay.
real thing. They're
All right, Gilda, would you just send that to me again? And
okay. Let me. I'll look
when
for
you've
it and
done
send
it, tell me, and because
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
seeing it
Yeah.
easily here.
Yeah, I try my best to, but I haven't gotten the computer yet because I've been waiting for the new ones, because they're all going to be reworked.
Oh yeah,
with
they
more-
are every year. You can
with-
never get ahead of that one.
With more ports, and no, but now it's really changing. The chip is changing, is no longer Intel chip and so on.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting, and it doesn't come out. So I suffer because I am
Usually they come out in the fall anyway.
right. But
in
usually
computers.
there's a show in which they show up in the spring, and the only things that didn't show up are the MacBook Pros. Those didn't show, everything else showed.
Well, they'll change it in the fall. So.
Right, but can I last? I mean, my computer is
Yeah.
from 2009 or 2008 with a rotary, and I
Wow.
really have to jump hoops.
Yeah, that's old.
Yes.
That's about 4 computers ago
Yes,
for me.
it's been, yes, right. And I'm still with the same one. Can you imagine?
Right. Well, I
But
can't
it works and everything. I'm just not. It should have had added RAM, and then I would have been a little better. But
right.
I'm not a computer whiz, so.
Okay. Well, let me carry the ball here for a few minutes on just to get people started.
Okay, I'm sending it to you now. I found it.
Okay.
So here goes.
All right, send it. We'll see what the speed of light does for us.
Forward.
Okay.
Wait.
It's not arrived.
No, it hasn't, because
You haven't sent it yet. Okay.
no, because it doesn't show when I put forward. I don't see it. So.
Okay, so while you're working on that, or why don't you first, you had a epiphany that you wanted to share with us. So why don't you give us the epiphany, then I'll begin the Court of Swords, and by then maybe this other document.
Okay, here it goes.
Okay.
I'm going to send it to you now. I found it, and because usually there is a all the messages are next to each other, one on top of each other. So the latest one, when you answered me and then I answered you back or something, was what was showing up. I just sent it to you now. It just went.
Okay.
So I had to click on the lowest one on the bottom in order to get the actual pictures.
Okay, let me Okay, so this is the Tabula Mundi. Huh?
Oh yeah, these women are really. Phew. You can go to the website tabulamundi.org,
Mhm,
and they've got other connections and things, and the research is winded,
mhm,
and she's working on it. She's done already 3.
mhm.
This is the 3rd one. Tabula Mundi is the 3rd one. She did one of the 20 major arcanas, and then another one called the Rosetta Stone. So she can even write your name in Egyptian hieroglyphics in the whole thing. So the Egyptian is there, it's all the way back, and then the Kabbalah and the astrology. So all of it is weaved into the art, and then she uses a frame, so everything is very centered, similar to tankas. Tankas have a golden ratio, that everything is perfectly proportioned.
Right
So
on.
her, I mean,
Okay.
her cards
So,
are the last one specifically.
but these are not the Toth deck. These are their own deck. Is that true?
Yes, their own deck, but it's all based on the top. It comes from there.
Right.
She
Okay.
talks
All right.
about it.
I have it here now. So
Yeah.
since you're talking about it, let's
Yeah,
go
she
ahead and
talks
get it.
about
I'll
it.
get it on the screen and then you can tell us about it. Okay. So
Yeah,
this
well, they
is
know more than me. Yeah, you see how well done they are.
yeah.
It's color coordinated. For
Mhm,
example, you see the princess. It has the red on the bottom. It's ready to manifest, and on top you see the icon.
mhm,
It's ready to manifest, and then you move to the prince. I guess the name here is not the prince.
mhm.
So he's already on it. With his going for it, right?
Yeah.
I told you it was about to will, to dare, to know, to be silent in order to manifest something. You're
Mhm,
creating a container and an intention. So
mhm,
by the time you get here, you're daring. The first one you will, second you dare, and then the queen has knowledge and balance from everything it has discovered,
mhm.
and then the king just blasts, yeah, so queen. And then so all of these, she has the head in her hand, and you see she's manifesting the child, the face of the child, which is the manifestation of something new, but in form.
Right.
And then if you move to the king, the top you see is no longer a possibility. No, that's the prince. The one on top of that,
The one on
that's the
top.
prince. Yeah, that's the
No,
king.
there's
That would be the king.
oh, that's equal to the
Remember, the knight
yeah,
is the king.
right, in this deck.
Right. You see, no longer up here is there a physical face. It's more of an abstract manifestation of a 6-pointed star.
Mhm,
And it has on both hands, all of these symbols have meaning.
sure.
The sword and the other and the horse and the whole thing. So, and the colors too. There's blue and then there's gold.
Mhm,
So the manifestation of the intellect is spread out and in its fullest form.
right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
And you see in the horse, right there, you can't see it too well, but it has like a collar
Yes.
where,
It
and
looks
there you
like a
have,
skull.
I think it's the face of a boar or something. I can't, I have
Oh
to
yeah,
look.
because it has horns.
Right. So all these symbols trail you throughout the deck. Here it's he is in command, and the
Mhm,
horse has the animal instinct of the boar, and all the meanings. You have to read all the meanings of the boar and whatnot. Um then it's right, it's in the horse, but he's riding it. He's ready
So
to
so what I'm seeing here is sort of the Ezekiel images of the apostles too, the ones that get built out on cathedrals. because the boar is that, the wings of the eagle are that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all there.
Yeah. And
I don't have the book, so I only go by, kind of the little book. I have the
Mhm.
little white book that
Yeah.
comes with those, but they have a book, and the research on the animals, on the symbolism, and how it is weaved through Kabbalah,
Yeah.
because you will see
Okay, but
below.
we're not seeing any Jewish
Let me
letters
see.
on these decks. I'm not
Well, they
seeing
are
it.
on them. See, I have them here, and they are here. You just don't see them. They're on the lower, or maybe the queen doesn't have one, but all the other ones do. They
Oh,
have
okay.
they have the planets, and the this is one of them, and there's here, see,
Mhm.
one here, and then one here, one planet, and the letter.
Okay, and what is the name of this deck?
But you might find them only in the major arcana. You might not have the letters of the Jewish alphabet in the rest of the deck. It might be the letters are 22. You will
Yeah, but
find them.
the letters do appear on the Kabbalah, and so they would be present.
Yes, they will be present in the
Yeah.
major arcana. They're present. This is a major arcana, so I figure that
Right.
those are present in the major arcana. But the planets, and then each one is related. When you get to the rest of them, they follow the decans of the astrology. Remember that Raquel was talking about that? Water, air of water, air of fire, air of. I can read you what they are. Why don't you put them in? I'll read you what the little book says of those.
Okay, now tell us first though, what is the name of this deck again?
Tabula Mundi,
The Tabula Mundi deck.
and it's by M.M. Meline.
And this is a good deck that you recommend?
Yeah, this is an advanced deck, I have to say. Yeah, if you want to learn, you're better off with the Rider deck, the Rider
Right.
Waite deck. This is
Right.
advanced. It's
Yeah.
advanced deck. So.
Marilyn, what I would suggest to you, if you're just getting back into the Kabbalah, yeah, or I'm sorry, to
No,
the
I've never
Tarot.
been in it. I've never been in it at all.
I've
I'm
never
just-
been in it at all.
No,
Okay,
no,
so
I'm
in
learning the
that case,
tarot. I want to learn the tarot a little bit.
okay, so there's a book called 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack. And
Okay,
that is an excellent, simple book that talks you through the whole tarot deck. And it's based on the Rider Waite Clark deck. Okay, now you can get yourself a copy of the Rider Waite Clark deck from Amazon for $10. Okay. And that
so
would be,
as soon as I finish the Jung book on the symbols, that you suggested, the man and his symbols. So
yes.
when I finish that one, then I'll go to this. But it's very fascinating. And you started to say at the beginning something about a magician, and then we got off on another thing. And I wonder if you're going to come back to the magician. I'm
Well,
curious.
not tonight, because we've
Okay.
we did the magician a year ago. So,
Okay,
so there's we've been running a course here for at least 9 months now. Okay, every week. And so there are, I don't know, about 42-hour sessions on all these different cards and what they mean. Okay, and so tonight we're working with the court of the swords, which is one of the 4 suits. And
okay,
now the structure of it just simply is the major arcana are the major archetypal events that happen in your life that everybody experiences. You cannot escape them. And they may get constellated at different times, but once they're constellated, once they start to play, it's like a record in a jukebox. Once you've pushed the button and the record starts to play, then it's going to play until it's done. Okay,
Mhm.
so one example is the Empress card, which many readers read as mother. And the Empress card in the Rider Waite is pregnant. And once a woman is a mother, she's a mother forever. Okay, that particular archetype won't stop playing until you stop breathing if you're a mother.
Mhm.
Okay, and so the first 22 cards are archetypal, and then the other 56 cards are in four suits, which relate to the four psychological functions that Jung talked about. And they are typical things that happen to everybody in life. And if you've had all of the 56 things and the reverse of the 56 things, in other words, the negative side of the 56 things, if
Mhm.
all those things have happened to you, then you are fully individuated. In order for that to happen, you need to play through all four suits. And so in this series, what we're doing is we're talking about references that some of us are more experienced, have with respect to all these cards in detail. So tonight we're talking about four cards, which if you think of a playing card deck, it would be the face cards. Okay, except they're in the tarot, there are four of them, not three. Okay, but you could read tarot off a normal deck of playing cards too, quite easily.
I can read you now. I have the little book.
Okay, you are ready. Okay, so we're talking about the tabula rasa, or the
Tabula Mundi
tabula mundi deck. And so
by M.M. Malin.
okay, so I'm going to put that deck back up on the screen.
Right, so that's the Knight of Swords, which would be the king. Okay.
All right, so let's start
just like the Thoth deck.
Right, okay, so let's start with the princess. Okay, so
the princess of the rushing winds, the lotus of the palace of air. So that would be air, earth.
Right, and there you see the Jewish letter.
I see that, yes.
In the center of her, which is Gimel, I believe. And
right, 0 Capricorn through 30 Pisces, centered in the airy cherubic constellation of Aquarius. Related minor, Ace of Swords, crest of a wind, head of Medusa, the avatar. The Princess of Swords brings a battle for insight. Her power to know will liberate the mind.
Yes.
That's it. This is just a little book.
Mostly for women, though, because it relates. This relates to intuition, and we've talked at length, I think, about Clarissa Pinkola Estes's book called "Women Who Run with the Wolves," and in there is a 40-page dissertation about how women access their intuition. And so what you're describing here is basically that process.
Well, it's embedded in the process of alchemy, in that when two elements come together and they create a blast, okay, and then the sun is born, something new is born,
yes.
And they consider that the sun, the new object that it has a complete, like when something gives birth to a child is complete in its own, it's different.
Right.
But so the blast, when it that's male, a boy, a son. So father, mother, son. But during the blast, neither the mother or the father are fully there. They're spread out. And that is the spiritual nature of being, and that is called the daughter. And
Right.
therefore, this is the daughter.
And
And
in Jungian psychology, it would be the symbol. This is the symbol of that coming
exactly, it's the abstract space in which the blast took place, which all of these things are there. And there's there is a mystical, because it's not yet formed. So that's this princess would be a page,
Right.
which is trying, and that's why also here they related to they have related minors. So to this they relate, and Malene relates it to the Ace of Swords. It's the blast in which all the fractals are there ready to come up with something, but you've got,
Right.
then you
And-
give it form and intention and processes.
Right. And with Kimmel,
Yeah, I'm not
it
familiar.
also relates to the high priestess. But there's a question here that I would like to respond to, just in case has described a unfortunate accident with his computer, but then he says, why is it that intuition is always attributed to women? Men can also have intuition. So I will defer to Gilda and
Oh, of course,
Marilyn.
man, of course, you have a right side of the brain and a left side of the brain. So you also you have both, but the one side is the rational, and it is the opposite of the other one. And that opposition is called male and female. Male and female are complementary to each other, but they're opposites in they mirror an opposite side of it. And the female is related to intuition because, for example, she has a womb that she cannot see. It's dark. And in that womb inside of her, form is created. The male can see all his organs. The male can see his sexual organs when he's doing what he's doing. The female cannot. So it's hidden by nature. I mean, you're talking, you want to know why? Well, I'm giving you the visceral
Right.
mirroring of it. And one side of the brain is a receptive, and females receive from the male, just like energy. The cauldron receives something to put in it. So those are two separate, they're separated, but you can unite. They are complementary, because if there's no receptacle, then there's nothing to put in it. There's no male energy. If there's no female, the male isn't putting anything
Yeah,
in
and
there.
actually we're talking about feminine and masculine, not male and female. In
Well,
the
they're
gender
related.
sense.
They're related.
Well, sure, they're related, but
One is a manifestation of the same principle. That's
Okay.
why I chose it. I chose it because it's a physical, objective, visceral manifestation of the duality that exists
Okay.
in order to become one. Now, inwardly, the female has a male, what's called animus and individuation, that is projected because her body is feminine, so she can't see a male body in her, but she has that male yang energy also as
Mhm.
part of her mate. And the male has the anima, the female energy inside of him also, that projects invisibly because his form is different. It's the male form,
Okay.
like a key. The
Right.
key goes into an opening. So the male is the key and the female is the opening.
Okay.
It's like that.
So I'm going to leave that for a minute. I'm going to come back to it. But Marilyn, did you have any response to this question? Why is it that intuition is always attributed to women? Men are all
It's
also
not. They have intuition the
No.
same.
No, but I noticed something else on this, and it kind of alludes to that. There's the image of the mandorla, which is not a mandala. So it looks like a mandala in the center, but then
Right.
towards the bottom and at the top, there's a mandorla. And that is showing to me the masculine and the feminine are
right.
coming together.
It's over. A mandorla is overlapping circles, and so this area where beneath her knee in this case would be where the two circles overlap, and in that area it can be both things. Now, what I would say in response to Gilda is that when I test on the Myers-Briggs type indicator, I test in the 99th percentile in intuition. And
Sorry, I'm laughing.
Well, that means you're right brain dominant.
right, I guess that's true. But actually it's not true because
Or is it, let me see,
you know, because there's never
left side
been,
of the body.
yeah, there's never been
Yeah, right brain.
a case where I doubted my manhood,
Of
Gilda.
course not.
Right.
That's
Right.
irrelevant. This is
Well,
esoteric.
it is
It's
relevant.
myth. It's esoteric. It's myth.
Right. Okay.
You are
so
attracted to the female because it's your complement, and the female is attracted to the male because it's complement.
right.
Like
But what
the
I'm
key
saying
is
is
attracted
that,
to go in the hole in order to open the door.
but what I'm saying is that on the type indicator, well, let me give you my description of the two different types. So the scale is sensing and intuition. Okay, now a sensing person, you can show them 1,000 trees and they won't believe there's a forest. You show an intuitive person 3 trees and they assume there's a forest. Okay, they see the forest immediately.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, you
so
see the bigger picture.
they see the bigger picture. Okay, and so that's the way I have always thought. And however, I am also a T, and so that's T and F for thinking and feeling, and I'm definitely on the T side, and that means that, you know, I didn't have any trouble getting through law school and business school and all the statistics involved in that. And so I can also think logically, but as they say in a book called People Types and Tiger Stripes, my most comfortable position is in the intuitive side, just letting things come to me. Um, and so
Yes, this is, you have that dominant feature. Now,
right.
if you were conversant in astrology, I would point it out because I
Mhm.
looked at your chart and you have
Ah,
all these Scorpio, and Scorpio is a water sign that's deeply penetrating. So I don't remember exactly, you know, I would have to look at it again, but it's powerful and it's penetrating, and obviously you must have it prominent.
mhm.
And
Yes.
Libra is cardinal. Libra thinks, and Libra plans and plots and ways and does all of that. So you've
Oh
got
no, I
both
never
going
do
on.
that.
So you've got both, which is a gift. That's a
Yeah,
gift, a
you're right.
balancing gift,
It is a
because
gift. You're right. You're right.
the sign after Libra is Scorpio, so you don't have it squaring you, and you don't have it in opposition, which is a much more difficult. You would have had a very difficult time integrating that because the distance would be much greater. But
The
you will have
distance of what?
the distance of those two things will be much greater. In order to integrate, you've had to travel, you know, much greater and path and try and all of that. You know, it's like walking from here to China, right? In oppositions and squares bring you lots of obstacles.
Yeah, lots of
And
obstacles and lots of experiences. Now, I
right,
need to say to Fernanda, who has come on here as a guest, that I'm unable to make you a panelist for some reason. I've marked you to be able to come up into the panel, but for some reason Zoom is not accepting that. It says that it's going to bring you back in as a panelist, but I don't know why.
Right. So for you, it worked out because it's next to you. It's right next to you. It's the sign before, next, after you. So you're able to get away with it well. And then therefore that,
Now, what am I getting away with?
well, water and air don't necessarily blend together easily. There,
Right.
there's friction there. But since it's close enough, then you're able to use it and further and evolve without having overwhelming obstacles that need to be overcome.
Yeah.
So that's another.
Well,
You would love astrology. It would give you all the answers that you never knew.
yeah. One day I'll have enough time to study my astrology books, but
Mhm.
I haven't had yet, and my life got more complicated, not less. so
Right.
anyway, Justin says, Gilda, thank you. Know about the brain hemispheres. It is a well-known way of describing it, and it
Mhm.
makes symbolic sense, but I doubt it holds true in present-day neuroscience.
No, it does. For example, people who are left-handed are completely dominant on that side of the brain. They could males, but many males who are
Right.
left-handed, and they're just simply so dominant that as a child they just couldn't do it any other way. So they are usually very intuitive, and most of them are quirky. They follow the path of intuition and all of that.
Right. Okay. Well, I think it's important to go back to the decks that we've also been relying on.
Yeah,
Up
can
in-
I finish those and then you can move on? So
Okay, so let's do that. We'll bring up.
yeah, since this is a little book, it's not a big thing to read. It's just a couple of lines, and then you can see how she works it.
All right. So there's the princess. So
Yeah.
the next one is.
Yeah, and supposedly the red means something. I think it's the eye of Shiva, and then the yellow is the intellect. So it's all trying to
Okay.
meet. So here the yellow is in the background taking over, and it's
Mhm.
got some blue coming in. So the colors are also coded,
Right.
as are the swords and the,
So this is like the Prince of Swords, even though the name was obscured.
yes, that would be the exactly Prince of Swords. So which is 20 Capricorn, 20 up to Aquarius.
Mhm.
So and if you want to relate that one, you can relate it to the 4 of discs, 5 of swords, and 6 of swords. So she tells you how they correlate to those other ones.
Mhm.
It says crest of a winged angelic head with a pentagram on the brow. No, is this the prince?
It's a hexagram.
Okay, with a she says here says a pentagram on the brow. The avatar. The Prince of Swords is altruistic and humanitarian, but in excess of pacifism can lead to defeat. He earns success with the application of science, using his intelligence and flexibility of mind, but if exhausted, he clings to power.
Mhm.
That's it.
Okay. Well,
Right.
we've certainly seen that in current affairs.
Mhm. Right, and you see the little green face there in this triangle.
Yes.
But also the little green thing. It's an icon that's throughout the whole thing. I'm not as familiar, but it's and it comes from alchemy and everything else. I mean,
Right.
all of these. That's why this is an advanced deck. You need to be familiar with the symbology.
Right.
So let's see the other one.
Okay. So then there's the queen. Here's the
Right.
queen.
So here's the queen. The queen would be 20 Virgo to 20 Libra, similar to you. That's your deacon of your sun. The queens of the thorns of air. So that means that it's the queen of air, and backed by with water. Okay, the air side of water.
Mhm.
Related minors, 10 of discs, 2 of swords, 3 of swords. Crest of a winged child's head. So you see the Cupid up there, just the
Yeah.
head, just the
Right.
head, because she severed the other head she has in her hand, right?
Right.
And then
She's only got one wing too.
so but the other one is our sticks, you know, in where she holds the two symbols of eternity, of
Yes.
return, right? So it says, and then the avatar says, the Prince of Swords is altruistic. Oh no, I'm sorry. The avatar says, the Queen of Swords cuts away illusion, bringing peace, but in experiencing the sorrows of solitude, she can also be enlightened. Her highest way is not that which the powers of wealth can comfort, for she can then become tyrannical. That's what it says.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know, the child is up there, the head is severed, so she sacrifices. That's maybe why she has a wing, you know,
Yeah.
in order for her intellect to be so precise and penetrate the water, because that's the water part of air working with water. So
Okay, so let's go on to the Knight of Swords. This is again like the king in other decks.
exactly.
Fire
So
bear.
Lord of the winds, of the breezes, king of the spirit of air. That would be 20 Taurus into 20 Gemini, 20 degrees Taurus to 20 degrees Gemini. Related minors, 7 of discs, 8 of swords, and 9 of swords. So you can understand like 9 of swords, how it's related, because 9 of swords, you're being challenged completely by the intellect, and you can die, which the 10 of swords, and you're annihilated, right?
Mhm.
Crest of the winged star of the Dioscuri. You know, Dioscuri? Dioscuri. Dioscuri. That's a symbol.
Yeah,
Uh,
Dioscuri. I'm not sure what that means, but
yeah. So
don't mind
the
me.
avatar, the Knight of Swords, is analytical, but can tend towards being domineering, creating interference. There is the danger of cruelty coming from a place of mental anguish.
Right.
He fears failure and thus performs twisted acts of mental agility.
Oh, here's Raquel. Raquel has arrived. Hooray.
Oh, she started listening to the goodies, and she
Yeah. So you're done that now, right?
yes.
Okay. Now, Gilda, while we were in our meeting at 7:30, you were saying that you've had an epiphany, and so
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah.
repeat my epiphany.
Well,
Yes, I hung around in this bubble of energy that had me stuck for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I need to unravel that puzzle. And I have already done so, but without knowing. So now I can just learn the structure underneath it. And that is that the Kabbalah's bare bones is embedded in the tarot.
Oh, yes.
And it was created, the story tells, and something I just unearthed on the internet, that an abbey, a Christian in Roman times, noticed that numerically all of these things could be, and then he added 2 cards, the devil and the chariot, to the 20 trump cards.
Uh-huh.
And that created 22, and that gave every single letter of the Kabbalah alphabet a trump card. And they're all connected, as to the one before, the one after is connected to the tree of life. The tree of life is geometrically conceived with sacred geometry.
Sure.
Their path, and following the path is like having the key to a puzzle. It uses mathematics, it uses language, and also has the openness of manifesting magic, which is what Aleister Crowley finally did. Now, in what I read, it said that there also exists a different way of accessing and it's the basis of math. It's found everywhere. I mean, this is not just tarot. This way of formulating the Kabbalah, the way of formulating is behind all algebra, behind everything. You can work on any experiment and it's the same process because you're accessing from the zero, you're placing something in there and then going through the steps of manifestation to bring something to explore the possibility of creation and manifestation. So there's also a second way of interpreting the tarot, which is it's probably one more, 3 or 4, and that they call that the Celtic way. And the Celtic way, like I said, the Kabbalah brings forth it's embedded in it is manifesting objectivity, an object in form. Like mother, son, child. Okay, child's a form that continues and creates civilization. It creates all sorts of things because, like you said, everything in the house when you look around is created by man, right? It's manufactured. So that's part of how they move in life. Always using that method and then manifesting it. And once it's manifested, they continue moving on to the next thing. And of course, it varies according to the times, the zeitgeist of the times.
Sure.
Whereas the Celtic use a similar, but it says it's a circle and it goes around it, manifesting like an Ouroboros, making it whole, but from inside to yourself or yourself and your own transcend, and then you transcend. They're not invested in creating the object outside and doing it and spreading it and multiplying it. They catch it inside.
It's just symbolic.
Exactly.
I need to bring to everybody's attention, just in case it's just told us, that Manuela, who has been our frequent guest and participant here, has now emerged from the hospital for the second time. She was hospitalized for COVID a few months ago, and then she went back in, but it turned out to be pneumonia. So she is home again. And so thank you for letting us know that, Justin, because she's one of our regulars and we miss her participation. She is from is it Bolivia, or do you remember?
No, she's from Argentina.
Argentina. She's from Argentina, right? And so we have a good representation from all over the world here now. So Barbara Kovats, are you willing to say anything to us? I see you're here, but you don't have to. If you don't speak up, you won't be heard, and you won't be seen on the YouTube video. But we'd love to know something about you.
There, I gave you a link with all of this esoteric information.
Great. Okay, and I'll put that out on YouTube. So Barbara, it looks like you're trying to speak, so go ahead.
I just said hello.
Hello.
This is my first time, and I'm finding it quite interesting.
Oh, good.
I have a long time love of the tarot.
Terrific.
So I'm appreciating the discussion very much. Thank you. Thanks for your work.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for being here. We're working through this material. It's taking a year, believe it or not, or more. It might be more, because the tarot has so much to do with psychology, also Jungian psychology, and the irrational side of thinking. So what is useful to understand which I'm sure you know and others here know, but maybe Marilyn doesn't know, is that the Tarot relates to the irrational side of thinking, not the rational side. And that is also the side that Jungian psychology applies to entirely. Okay. And so when people try to compare Carl Jung to a rationalist like Jordan Peterson, they're barking up the wrong tree. Okay. Carl Jung is not about rational thought. He is about the irrational side of our brain, which we have been suppressing for probably, well, at least a couple of millennia, maybe longer. I mean, since back when there were societies that were goddess worshipers, the Greek goddess worshipers. But after that, we sort of got off on this rationalistic kick. And the problem with the rationalistic kick is that's not where life is. Life is in the eros. Chaos is there too. I acknowledge that. But so is life. And the things that are on the logos side, like things that are written in books, those are all logos. And so they're rigid and they almost don't apply anymore. But one thing we know about the Tarot is that since about the middle of the 15th century, it really hasn't changed. There have been some innovations that have been introduced within the last decade, including a fifth Tarot, which is a Tarot that has a complete additional suit. So we've had long conversations about whether there should or should not be a fifth suit. I happen to be of the opinion that there should be a fifth suit, although I don't necessarily agree with the name of the fifth suit that was created by the people who brought up the fifth Tarot. But nonetheless, there may be a change coming because these things emerge over maybe a century. There may be a change coming in the Tarot in the sense that there would be a fifth suit, but as of now, there's only, at least I only know of one deck that has 5 suits.
So does that mean there's someone in charge of it who says what's official or not official?
No, it's not in there. There's no question of being in charge. What's in charge is the collective unconscious, and what resonates survives, what doesn't resonate dies. And so in the case of the Tarot, which has been going for 600 years now without major change, what that means is that the essence of the Tarot deck, and there are hundreds of them, of course, is, has reached a point of general consensus in the human species. And we describe it differently sometimes, but they describe the events of our lives. So the major arcana are the major events of our lives, and the minor arcana are typical situations that come up during a lifetime. And so if you can look at any one of the Tarot cards and think of an experience you've had, both a positive and a negative experience that relates to that card, then you can take that off your bucket list. But if you're going to be fully individuated, fully whole, you have to experience them all. And we're not, most of us are one-sided on at least one. And so my weaknesses, my weaknesses are sensing and feeling, although I think feeling is my weakest. sense, and but it comes through, and so I've got lots of experiences in intuition and lots of experiences in thinking, but when I get into a complex thing like a lawsuit, I really detest it. Okay, I really detest all the details, and so in the military, most people are sensing people, so they're people that get all the details very good, and those guys, the people that tend to be sensing, typically get up to 2 stars, major general in the Army and the Air Force and the Marine Corps, or Rear Admiral in the Navy. But the guys who get to 3 and 4 stars, those are the guys who can play the politics and can understand the political game. And so examples of that would be Colin Powell, or General Mattis, or General Flynn. Is it Flynn? No. The general that became Donald Trump's chief of staff was one of these very intuitive guys in the Marine Corps, like General Mattis, who rose to the top ranks. And the reason is that the other types, the sensing types, don't want to play with the politics. They say, "Give me a mission and I'll go do it." Yeah, aye, sir. But they don't know how to identify the mission. And so you have to be intuitive to plan the mission and set the mission. And of course, everybody is a little bit, and we train for it. But anyway, I guess that's sort of a rambling soliloquy. Jerome says, excellent insights, Gilda, of Kabbalah and the Celtic Paths. Dr. Jerry Wright describes the Celtics as being more transparent to the unconscious. I definitely agree with that. But I do want to get through these 2 cards, and we've talked about them a little bit, but I want to get through them with the She-Wolf deck and with the Starman deck. And Raquel seems to be pleased by that. And so let me, without further ado, I will present you with the She-Wolf deck, the Queen of Swords in the She-Wolf deck. The She-Wolf deck is always popular. It was developed by Devani Wolf, and it's popular among young men because it typically has naked women, and this one is no exception. And so this is the Queen of Swords in the She-Wolf deck, and all I have to do is find it in the book, and I will read what Devani says about it. Okay, all right, so the Queen of Swords, she says Virgo and Libra, and keys: overcoming obstacles, perspective, strength, ideals, clear perception. Okay. Artwork illumination: high above the clouds as if they are her home, a woman kneels gracefully, overlooking heavenly space. There is not much else occurring, with the exception of Venus making a soft appearance. And there doesn't seem to be. She is the queen of the air element, and high above it all is where she belongs. Oh, high above it all is where she belongs. Here she has more than a bird's eye view. She has the perspective of the tallest mountains, of the stratosphere, even the stars. And the light reading of this card is when we are neck deep in a situation, it is nearly impossible to gain perspective from it. When we have had some time and distance away, however, new thoughts and outlooks come into being. Up close, everything seems large and we can become overwhelmed by many details. From a distance, everything appears smaller and nuances don't matter as much. Perspective is so important for our peace of mind. It is crucial to have boundaries that feel good, serving our highest and healthiest ideals. When this queen arrives in a reading, we are being asked to take a step back or up from the situation at hand and gain more insight into all elements involved. Our clarity right now depends upon it. And the shadow reading is to be so high up in the clouds as perhaps to be unreachable. Boundaries are quite necessary and healthy for our well-being and the divine unfurling of our relationship with others. But too many boundaries can create a fortress and make us completely inaccessible. We must be careful not to be cold with others simply because we want to remain strong. There is so much strength in vulnerability too. Just don't give it all away up front. And the mantra is a clear perspective comes from taking a step back. Okay, comments on this? Cal, did you want to talk about it?
I'm actually surprised that the planet Venus is inside this card, because I would not think of that planet as a representative of Queen of Swords, because I think it's too much of the air element, and I don't really see the connection with the archetype of the planet Venus, because Venus is about feelings, but it's about trying to find and understand what is valuable to us, but in a more instinctual manner, not an intellectual manner. And I think that the Queen of Swords is about believing, having faith, but creating with thoughts and words. I think that writing and speaking is all about what this card is, and what represents the faith of the Queen of Swords. It's about intellect, but in a sense of more like borderline having too much faith in what she believes in. And I think that the archetype of the planet Venus is much more malleable than that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Hilda or Barbara, anybody on the panel also want to speak?
Ever since I discovered the different, when one brings into the other matrices that exist in the tarot, this being the swords, the air element being dominant, moving through the water with the water element back underneath. Perhaps that might be Raquel, where it's connected to Venus at all, if at all, because it's a female, it's still a female. And according to the deacons, it's air moving with water. So even though it is dominant in the intellect, it also has to carry the waters of Venus somewhere along, and that makes it a very astute female, very astute way of realizing the intellect.
Observer. Yeah.
Yes, it has access to the waters where they wouldn't be found if it was, for example, in the prince or something else, because it's moving through the female
Right.
form. And I think maybe that's where the Venus comes in.
Well, let me, what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about this in the context of a manly pursuit, which is how I experienced it in the Marines. And I think that this represents, in general, my way of being in the world. So it's interesting that we've got Libra in here and so on. But my way of being in the world is to initially hang back with people. In other words, as I was growing up, I went to 13 different schools in 12 years. Or no, in 16 years. I went to 13 different schools in 16 years. And so everywhere I was a stranger. And of course, in any social group, there's established cliques already. And so I learned very early on that what I would have to do is go in to a new group and just wait until I was accepted. And sometimes that would take 6 to 12 months before I'd be accepted in a group. And so that's one way I thought about it. And so in the Marine Corps, we have a exercise at Marine Corps Officer Candidate School called the reaction course. And the way this works is you think of 10 booths, and each booth is 20 feet by 20 feet. And in each booth, there is a different problem. So one booth could be filled with water and then have logs in it. One booth can have radioactivity in some way, and you have to get past that and over a wall or something like that. And so everyone has a different combat problem. And the way it's taught is, first of all, you're divided into groups of 10 so that every officer candidate gets an opportunity to do one of these exercises the first time through. And so in each booth, they would identify a leader and say, you're the leader, you figure out what to do here. Okay. Now, the second time through, they make it more difficult because they have you run up and down these hills for 3.5 miles wearing full combat gear. And you have to do that in 40 minutes, I think, 3.5 miles. And then they bring you up to one of these booths and they cut you loose, and they don't say who the leader is. And my method of dealing with that, you can imagine there's 10 men who all think that they are leaders and all want to be the one that gets the good grade. And my tendency in that case was to simply let the alphas go first. And very often they'd make a mistake very, very quickly, like in a minute or two. You'd have 15 minutes to solve the problem. And in a minute or two, all the alphas would knock themselves out of the problem by, stepping on radioactive water or whatever it was in the problem. And so I would just watch and let them go crazy. But then I'd say, okay, I've been watching, and here's the way to do the problem. And then my way would work, whereas the ones that were jumping up and down were people who were more like the King of Swords, probably, because what I think happens is the hanging back is the Queen of Swords. She's observing, discerning, understanding what the environment is and what needs to be done. And then you switch personas, in effect, in the middle of that problem and become the King of Swords then. Okay, so that's my cut on it. But
and you're also allowing your intuition to come in and give you
Right.
and give you some insights
Right.
because that's got time to come in. You're not
Right.
rushing out to, your unit. So
Right. Even in that problem, if you let yourself catch your breath for 5 minutes and let the other guys all go frantically, oh, let's do this, do this, do this. And they start shouting at each other and fighting with each other. There are 10 of them. So, they're often pushing and shoving. You very quickly see what the mistakes are.
yeah.
and that's what the queen does. She's above the fray. She stays above the fray. She looks impassive, but she's got it under control. Notice she has the eye on her upper arm there, upper left arm, and so she's understanding the situation,
And
and
she's
then
also naked to allowing. I mean, the naked part is you're bare. You're allowing all the things to come in and be processed. So
Right.
you have a certain amount of raw clarity.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to stop that share, and I want to share the Starman Queen.
She's bizarre.
The Starman Queen, yeah, she's really.
It works
bizarre.
very nicely when isolated into a computer screen or made large into a large painting that you can explore.
Yeah,
But using it as cards, I've used it as cards.
it might be too much.
It's just very confusing.
Right. So my friend Eva Rider doesn't like this deck because she doesn't like the images, which are too confusing. And
You can't breathe.
Yeah, you can't breathe in this deck. But
No.
I like this deck because I think that the writings are excellent. The descriptions and the comprehension of the tarot on the part of the writer. And so I want to.
Well, your chaos theory is there.
Right. Okay, so here's the Queen of Swords in the Starman Tarot. It says, I serve a noble cause. And here it goes. In mythology, the Queen of Swords was often rather simplistically conceived as the Ice Queen. This highly intelligent, forthright, and principled woman is tied to performing her duties and obligations as a monarch. She is not afraid for heads to roll when she needs to protect her own or her kingdom's interests. But the dark tears symbolize the sadness she bears as a consequence for her, for she is no lover of execution and death. To live in integrity, she would far rather build alliances with her adversaries than use brute force. Think of Queen Elizabeth I. She was very much like this. She is dressed here in a Starman samurai kimono. It represents her self-discipline, courage, independence, honor, and willingness to serve her kingdom no matter what. As head of state, she offers an excellent counsel and constructive criticism with a piercing intelligence and well-earned wisdom. Here, she handles sacred medicinal plants, which have co-evolved with human beings for millennia. We use them for healing and guidance as part of spiritual practice. We eat plants, drink their juices, ferment and distill libations from them. We consume them in 1,000 forms. While some are toxic, like the berries of nightshade, holly, and dogwood, many have proved extraordinarily valuable. Evidence of the use of herbal remedies, for example, goes back 60,000 years to a burial site in Iraq. Today, the majority of the world's population, an estimated 5 billion, well, it's now nearly 8 billion, I think, use folk medicine for both acute and chronic health conditions. The Queen's medicinal journeying enables her to cleanse herself of toxic thoughts and experiences, a form of special cleansing to restore the mind-body connection, head with heart. Self-sufficient and perhaps a perfectionist, she is phenomenally capable, knowledgeable, and engaging with a brilliant intellect able to penetrate into the source of a problem, whether the domain is personal, political, or corporate. Her keen intelligence quickly strips away what's not important, accurately reflecting the facts and uncovering priorities and values. In the process, she uses her own experiences to help illustrate and unmask self-defeating patterns, understanding deeply on all levels the importance of a stitch in time to save 9. She applies this rigorous effectiveness with her own children, regarding it as her maternal duty to see her children grow up to be well-rounded, cultured, and highly educated ethical adults. Not always the warmest of mothers due to the heavy burdens of duty, she does bring compassion and a deep understanding to the vicissitudes and trials of life. The Queen of Swords is deeply committed to them, contributing to their gifts and talents effectively and making a difference in the world. Reversed, the Queen of Swords becomes embittered. Her searing intellect, instead of being released exquisitely into the world to serve a noble ideal, is turned inwards in terrible self-reproach or outwards to blame. Her emotional and intellectual intelligences are seriously out of balance. Either as a dried out husk, her intellect lashes out to attack or destroy, devoid of the juiciness and fecundity of love and positive emotions, or flooded by emotions, she sinks into the mire of depression, paranoia, unable to see and think things through logically. Nurturing can take care of both these tendencies. Okay, so that's the Queen of Swords in the Starman deck. Any comments?
I mean, I like what you have just read is profound, but it puts a big tag on this queen to be someone who carries actuality, the rearing of even children and so on with such diligence and perfection require some heart. Otherwise, they turn out, they can be good at what they do, but without heart, it always at some point will exhibit very strange slants. So I suppose that when you said about the healing quality of plants and so on, that's because of her intellect, she can use her Venusian nature of the natural world and put it to use. Maybe that's the way that she expresses compassion and healing and urging those around to take the best course in the situation.
Yeah.
So that's where I see her Venusian side would be in the healing quality of the intellect that knows how to extract from her female side, the natural world of water, healing, turning it into healing potions and whatever it is.
Justin Case makes an interesting comment here. He says, quite a mosaic this Queen of Swords is. And look how many eyes she has, probably in the back of her head too.
Yeah, are we missing part of it, or is that the whole of the card? Is there something on top? I think there was something I saw on top, like an owl or.
Yes, I'm sorry, I went too close.
Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
going on there. See, there's an
Right.
owl.
Oh my
with,
God, there's more.
yeah, an
Yeah.
owl with some sacred geometry, and then an open dark circle
Yeah.
here, which allows something to come in. But then there's the blood coming down into the void, which also, you know, blood is what the description was saying, that she'd rather come up with a solution rather than create war.
Yeah.
So
And
she
I think,
cries. She's got those dark tears.
and I think it's very interesting that the Bible here has a hole blown through
hole,
it.
Yeah, and the owl in the top actually has a butterfly face. It's not
Yes.
a completely owl.
Right.
And her sword is rusty.
Yeah. Rusty sword.
And she has like snake hands.
Yeah,
who-
that's very strange.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I'm just reminded of a scene in one of the movies about Elizabeth I when she has to decide to execute her lover, who's the Queen of, or the Duke of Norfolk or something like that. Somebody, I don't remember the correct guy's name, but anyway, she had to behead him. And
She also beheaded her cousin or whatever, Mary Queen of Scots.
oh yes, yeah, she took out Mary Queen of Scots also. So, you know,
Which
she
in
did-
reality began the whole fanfare of beheading monarchs, because before it wasn't, it's just something that was just something that never happened. They could never be blamed or anything because they were monarchs. And
Mhm.
she began by doing that, by beheading her own cousin, who was a royal. She began so then after that, you know, Henry VIII and everybody else started doing it.
Well, no, Henry VIII was her father. Henry
Well,
VIII.
in France, they started beheading women and so on. She knew that was
Yeah.
that was very dangerous, because by doing it once, that means it could be repeated,
Sure. So,
and it was repeated.
right. So just for clarity on the history side, Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, who was executed, were her parents.
Right.
Henry VIII beheaded Anne Boleyn, but Elizabeth became queen. But the irony is that the king shortly after that was James, who was Mary Queen of Scots' son, James the First.
Right, but she never even, I mean, that whole thing was arranged, and for that one purpose. And when she wanted to be close to her son didn't, you know, they weren't actually, there was no love there.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Or connection, or
You cut off mom's head, why should I love you?
she just gave birth to, and out it went, and that's the end of it.
Right. But I just as a little factoid, the scene behind me is Maryland, and in fact, the Bay Bridge across from the eastern to the western shore of Maryland is there, and the eastern shore is on the horizon there. And it was King James, who founded the colony of Maryland. It was Mary's land. So he did that in 1634, and the town in which I live is a colonial city. The only other one you'll find in North America is Colonial Williamsburg, but they turned that into a theme park. But we actually live in our colonial city. I don't, but I do live in the city, but I don't live in the colonial part of it. Obviously, from what you can see of the community I live in, but just 2 miles over my shoulder here is where the colonial part of the city is, and it's, you know, the streets are still carriage size and so on, and And so we actually live in it, and the capital of the state of Maryland was the first capital of the United States before the Constitution, back during the Articles of Confederation. And those are just some interesting factoids. So let's go to the King of Swords so that we can try to get through both the King and the Queen. And you're going to think in the She-Wolf deck that this King of Swords is quite phenomenal, because all it shows is women's bottoms.
Whoa.
So I'm going to have to give you what Devani Wolf says about this. This is the King of Swords, and and this is Taurus and Gemini. Keys: high intellect, innovation, shrewdness, and science. Artwork illumination. This should be good here. The body of a woman flows and spirals in the shape of a golden ratio. It is a symbol that is witnessed all throughout nature, from micro to macrocosm. Hurricanes, galaxies, DNA molecules, the list goes on. Many artists, musicians, and architects have captured its beauty over millennia. The Giza pyramids have this proportion, and the Parthenon, the song Literalis by Tool, 1618, stretching into infinity. The combination of Taurus and Gemini makes for a keen innovator and creative spirit, divinely and mathematically possessing and expressing the world. Light reading: this king is very sharp, quick, and loves theories. Exploration of the inner and outer worlds through intellect is the only prerogative. When we receive this card, we're being asked to find the source of our knowledge and our passion. There is a deep, beautiful oneness to all the things that we will find if we go far enough. Connect to the beginning, the source that houses all life and all things sacred. Take an additional step and apply some belief systems, wands, and emotions, cups, to the mix. Don't just rely on the mind. There are mathematical equations to explain much of life and the way it works, but it doesn't include the why. Now is a good time to spiral out and keep going. And I just mentioned that we're going to have Jason Smith in the Wisdom Path talking to us on Sunday at 2 p.m. about his book called Religious But Not Religious. And it's one of the big things he talks about in that book is the why, which is missing. So the shadow of this: as human beings, we have the beautiful capability to ask the question why, and we should not ignore the opportunity to ask this question now. There is a situation that is asking us to shed light upon for ourselves so that we understand the greater picture. We may be afraid of asking the important questions, especially if they potentially contain truths we don't necessarily want to know. But right now it is crucial we seek that out to better understand our universe as a whole. So does this remind you of anybody right now?
All the neuroscientists.
Well, it reminds me of the Republican Party, who's afraid to investigate what happened on January 6th. So they must have gotten a reverse King of Swords.
Right, reverse, because the King of Swords
reverse.
will.
I was reading the reverse, so they don't want to know the truth. And right. Okay. Raquel, do you want to talk about this card?
I think it's funny because in the Mythic Tarot, the King of Swords is Odysseus and his story of trying to get back home after the War of Troy. And
Mhm.
I think that he was diverted from the path back to his home because he was in a boat and he crossed, I think, a path with mermaids. They
Mhm.
used to sing to tempt
Oh, yeah.
the men, so they get inside the water to die. So
Yeah, the sirens, yeah.
yeah, the sirens. And I think that shape with a lot of women in this card reminds me a little bit of that, because
Yes.
the King of Swords is about making a strategy that will deceive his own temptation, because he knows where he's got to go, but he can't be diverted by anything. So
So he ties himself to the mast
yeah, yeah,
and tells his men to keep earplugs in as they
yeah.
go through
And
between
it
the
doesn't work
sirens.
because still he gets diverted, and he spends like 10 years to get back to his home and to his wife. So
Yeah, right. And so, yeah, that's a very good. That's a very good analogy about the sirens and how they can pull you off.
yeah,
Well, that would be because since he relies so much on the pristine and high quality intellect that he possesses, that eventually you will hit a wall if you're not integrated with the other centers of the heart and the gut and the hara, let's say.
Right.
So you will hit a wall, and you cannot continue using the intellect to move that wall. You need to drop into the heart center and the hara center. Otherwise, you will find destruction.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to stop that share, and I'm going to share with you the Starman tarot, which is also quite intense, um, as these paintings do get.
You like that deck.
Well,
It's
you know,
intense, absolutely.
no, Eva doesn't like it. I'm sort of neutral about the imagery, because I see its value. Okay, I see the value of the imagery. I wouldn't want to use this deck for a divination. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to try to
Advice from this.
advise someone's fortune from this particular deck. I think it's just too busy. And if you showed this card to a querent and said this applies to you, they'd say, well, you know what? What? But as I said, I generally like the descriptions of these cards, and they could easily apply to other decks. So, and that's the point, that these cards all point toward the same thing, these different decks. So the King of Swords, I believe in a fair world for all, is what the King of Swords says. The serious, high-minded King of Swords sees it as his duty to rule and govern his kingdom with absolute fairness and equality. He gives scant attention to his emotional life, perceiving it to cloud his judgment when he has to make difficult decisions that affect people's lives and livelihoods. He is careful to foster an environment resounding with positivity, supported by clear laws that nurture human dignity. He believes every human being is born equal and innocent and has the right to be valued, respected, and to be treated ethically. It's the responsibility of a civilized society and its governance structure to foster the conditions whereby men and women alike have the opportunity to fully contribute and realize their potential. He knows it is horribly detrimental to us all when people are dehumanized, objectified, humiliated, and treated as a means to an end. It poisons society. He sits astride his throne a monumental electric chair demonstrating his invincibility and tolerance to pain. A formidable, fearless leader and arbitrator, he is the consummate professional who calmly sizes up any situation with remarkable speed and accuracy and applying a hawk's eye view of events and potentialities. The lunar module on fire shows that once a decision is made, there's no going back. He removes all escape routes with the same ingenuity and energy as Alexander the Great. The mandrill baboon at his feet displays his choice of fierce, powerful allies, belying the fact that beneath the king's facade is a very sensitive, caring man. As a father, he is perceived cold and clinical, a firm disciplinarian and taskmaster. Underneath all this, he loves his children deeply and only wants the very best for them. He regards it as his duty to raise his children into responsible, capable adults and citizens, persons able to use and exert their intellect while mastering their emotions for the betterment of mankind. As a lover, he is the point, organized and reliable. He requires his partner to be an intellectual equal while respecting his personal freedom and control. The King of Swords indicates you are in the position to critically assess powerful situations around you, aligning them with you, with your ethics and your belief that everyone should be given a fair chance to learn, grow, contribute, and prosper. Given a clear perspective, you can calmly formulate a workable plan and strategy to pursue an ideal, no matter what the obstacles. Putting emotional concerns to one side, it invites you to gather the facts and information and analyze them critically in order to put forward a logical, workable solution and resolution for all. Reversed, you are feeling driven, impatient, and in no mood for time wasters. Punishing standards and judgments about incompetence are making things hard for yourself and others. This air of disillusionment and even despair needs to be dispelled. Over attachment to details, you need to rise up and gain a fresh perspective to renew your focus. Okay, very interesting. I like the baboon. Comments? Annabelle hasn't said anything tonight. So Annabelle, do you have anything to say about this card?
With both of the king and the queen, there's a lot of language on the cards, and I feel like I'm not as familiar with these Starman cards. This one all looks vaguely Asian or something, although he isn't wearing a kimono or anything like that. The Queen of Swords, it looked like it was a bigger variety of languages. It looked like they were sort of those from the Hobbit runes, and yeah, like a Hebrew maybe. There was a lot of different possibilities, so that the range for her, and then with her tree of life growing out of her head. I mean, I'm not sure if it's a tree of life because it's bare.
Oh yeah, this is definitely that's definitely the tree of life there.
Yeah, and that tree. So I'm looking at two things that contrast. One is the tree of life contrasting with the electrical, almost like antlers going out. And then the use of various languages. I mean, some of these look like, our script, but they aren't all, not that any of the languages meant to be read, but she's in a kimono, quite Asian. Yeah. He is not, he's almost obscured by that mandrel, and then his languages are Asian. So that's kind of the first thing that I noticed. They also both have books. He has a book down in the lower right hand corner, which is open, and kind of just color. She has the book up in the upper left-hand corner, which seems to have these cavities in it where something is sort of hidden. I mean, to me, they look three-dimensional. They look like there are holes that are filled, like you open the binding and then you have these secret places. So the contrast between their knowledge and their kind of force might be equal, but it's very different. Very, very different. Those are the first things I notice. I do have to say I'm very much, I just finished a 5-hour drive. And during that 5-hour drive, I listened to a reading of part 2 of Faust. And a couple of days ago, I did a 5-hour drive where I listened to the whole of part 1, well, you know, like book 1, book 2. So I'm quite flooded with language and with the fact that the characters who read the parts, I mean, besides the content of it, the characters who read the parts all had different accents. So, and it helped to distinguish between characters, but you had a kind of British small town accent, and then you had an Irish accent, and then you had a German accent, and then you had a kind of Chinese accent. And so I'm very tuned into nuances of language, let's call it that.
Well, you've certainly filled your brain with archetypal material.
Yeah.
I wonder
part
what
of my
your dream.
pursuit, as this class has been, it's part of my pursuit of understanding of Jungian, whatever you want to call it, just Jungianism. Can I call it that?
You might want to have a shot of single malt
before
you go to bed.
I've got some Lefroy. I'll do that. Yeah,
Lefroy, perfect.
In honor of Mary. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Raquel, do you want to comment on the card?
The only comment that I had was about I think that the ape represented the aggression of the man, actually, because it was the ape that hold the sword, and to me that's very, it caught my attention because it kind of represents that his aggressiveness is not human, you know, even though he's shooting lightning, but he's not holding the sword, you know. So
his animal nature is holding the sword.
But kind of like that gives me the idea that his decisions are entirely intellectual and not instinctual, or in an animal basis. So
yeah, that's a good observation. I like that. Gilda, did you want to say something?
Yeah. Can you put it back?
I will. I'm just checking. I
I
have to check every so often.
I get the impression that this king is in an electric chair, you know.
Yeah, it
he
says
looks
so.
like he's in an electric chair being electrocuted, and see what comes out of him.
And look what does come out of him.
And he's pretty fried. I mean, he looks completely fried. The only thing that stands out for me are his hands. Like the hands are about skill without hand, you know, so he has a skill to maneuver. And that's about the only thing that's rather human about him, that he has skills to maneuver. Everything else seems to be on high alert and electrocuted, where all kinds of results can come up. I mean, he has behind his head, you know, that's an ankh, life, you know, but he's like to the side of life. He's not even, his head is over here with those two wheels, so he's not centered. His figure is not centered on in his environment, in his position. He's off-centered. And the baboon, and he's way too electrocuted, so he can't access his humanity only through his hands, which means his ability to maneuver, you know, I mean, the M, maneuver, manipulation to, that's about the only thing that's free. Everything else is completely constellated into being connected into something else that's not rather human. And then the baboon, which I think is really kind of cute. You know, I love animals, so, and it's foregrounded here. And the baboon is known for, you know, being a very powerful animal when it comes to what he needs to do. So it says that, you know, even though his power, like it was said before, his power is not his, it's a power that he manipulates, and it's a power that comes from, if you think about that, all there's always a before and after that creates the present.
Mhm.
That, you know, he comes from a history of having to that aggression of the alpha being that needs to act and react in whichever way, but he's
Yeah.
using, of course, the intellect, but it's not far away from a certain power behind
Right.
being animalistic if he had to.
Yeah. And he would call upon those
Yes.
instincts if he needed to.
Oh yeah.
You know, you
Mhm.
definitely have to pay attention to this king. Now,
But he's off-centered, so that's the thing that I see here. This king is off-centered. His head is off-centered on the chair.
right.
Is the suit of the swords the most alpha because it's swords? I mean, just to take off on that word that.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you use swords in a sword in a violent sort of way. Miss Stella asked the question a minute ago about what is the fifth suit called. So in the fifth in the fifth tarot, which is a separate tarot deck, the fifth suit is called the Lotus suit, which that's one of the things I'm not particularly comfortable about in that fifth tarot idea. And because I don't like the reference to drugs, and it's not necessary to use drugs to understand and use any of these powers. And at least this is my opinion. And and Justin says decks with the fifth element usually consist of 97 cards, while Rider Waite is 78. Actually, the fifth tarot has 92 cards. It has from the 78, it has one complete suit, which is 14 cards. You know, for my lights, I mean, I like the idea of a fifth suit because I think that we do have a fifth element now, which is the human being, in the sense that, you know, for example, physicists can't figure out what the unified field theory is, or what the unified field is. And I say the unified field, quite obviously, is right here. Okay, because we can comprehend both Newtonian physics and quantum physics, and the unified field is in the human being. And so from my perspective, in terms of the tarot, the fifth element represents something that's unique to the human species. That's my opinion. Now, others, as Justin Case has pointed out, say that that the fifth, what did he say? The fifth suit. Oh, he said that the major arcana was regarded as the fifth suit, but I don't think that's right. I mean, maybe some people say that, but I think there's actually a fifth suit, which is the development of the human being, which is a new function that's coming along in the last couple of centuries.
I'll share that I've given it some thought about the fifth suit
Mhm.
because it's quite possible. But after discovering that the whole matrix of the tarot is connected with numerology and astrology, the numbers stop at 9. Then you have again the 1 and the 0, and it is there is no. And if you look at the shape of the numbers, all the shape of the numbers mean what the shape they have. It's related. So
Sure.
the fifth is left open because that is the realization that occurs of the person who unlocks the key to the game of tarot. So if one objectifies it there, and then the whole thing falls apart because there's no connection to all the matrices that
I
are
don't, I
embedded in
don't,
it.
I don't mean to objectify it because I don't,
Well,
I
put it
don't,
down as to the,
I mean, we have 7.5 billion fifth suits on the planet right now. Okay, so I'm not objectifying any. I mean, any more than we objectify the Empress card as mother. You
but
know,
there are some old decks, the most that have like 98 cards or something, and they include, let's say if you were to include, I think 3 more, let's say in the major arcana, call it prudence, charity, compassion, or something like this. So then but the numerology behind it is very precise. So in adding these things, unless it fits, then it destroys the whole connection that spirals, that allows the reader to immediately access connectivities. Also, they added the 12 zodiac signs. So
mhm.
that's what made it so many more cards. I think they added 3 to the major, and then they added 12 cards for the astrology signs per se. So instead of the astrology being behind Venus or Jupiter over here or whatever, they actually have a card for it. So
Right. So now we get into alchemy because each one of us can have different perspectives about a certain deck of cards, about what's needed in the decks, and about how to use the decks, how to understand the decks. All those things are different dimensions that are never the same. I mean, if I were to do if Gilda, Annabelle, Raquel, and I were to do one reading, which was the same cards with the same deck, for the same person at the same time, we would still do different readings. Okay, it's alive, right? Agreed, Raquel. Thank you for that confirmation. We would each do a different reading. It doesn't mean that the readings are wrong, either any of them are wrong, because it's about the what the tarot does. Okay, so in other words, when I say I can go into an auditorium with 1,000 people, throw the tarot deck down on the stage, and then just read the cards off the stage with no particular layout, and every person in the room will think I read for them. Okay, because that's how the tarot works. It will, if you do a 30-minute reading, it's going to connect with every single person in the room, for sure.
okay, so that was my point, because it layered, it has embedded in it all these systems that actually
Precisely.
correlate with one another. And the
Precisely.
minute that is broken, by adding, let's say, some added numbers, it is no longer, it no longer fits.
Well, nobody's breaking it.
No, but
Nobody's
it doesn't
breaking it.
fit. I understand what you mean, but if one is conversing in all the different ways of reading it, including the matrices that are embedded in it, then the realization becomes clear that that in order to realize magic through it, or that thing that comes alive, that's not there, it does so because of the foundation that's in it.
Yeah, but I don't think you're breaking anything because it's so complex. I mean, it's like applying the Myers-Briggs to the Tarot. Okay, Jung didn't write personality types until 1921, 100 years ago, but the Tarot was there for 500 years before that. Okay, and so, and I've only seen in the last, let's say, 20 years, anybody applying the Myers-Briggs to the Tarot. I now see it regularly, but I never saw it before this. And so the point is, it's alive, okay? And there's this interesting comment in one of these books I recall where the Napoleonic Code was issued. Okay, so it's all these words in books, very clear. And then 3 years later, an advisor to Napoleon comes in with the Napoleonic Code and commentaries. and it's 10 times as thick. There's 10 times as much writing there. And Napoleon says, why are there so many more pages? I was very clear in my Napoleonic Code. And the advisor says, Messire, il vit, it lives. Okay. and certainly, we don't have any trouble about talking about Tarot for 2 or 4 hours every Monday night, and we're never wrong. Or at least I don't think we're wrong.
The more one becomes, let's say, educated in the symbology, in
Yes.
symbols, and if you have a practice of meditation, which is what you're talking about, that is alive, where something else comes to you, then you marry the two.
Yes.
And then but so the numbers themselves, it's based on tens, 22. Once you pass two, then you go 2, 3, 2. You keep then repeating patterns that are already, you understand, then it becomes redundant. And this is what I was trying to convey here. I knew that it fit, but I wasn't aware exactly why. And it's hidden in the bones of it. So unless men gets rid of the head and the hands and the feet, when men becomes, a ball of light or something, then, and there's no arithmetic and no letters, then I'm sure, but the system which was created so long ago is complete.
Yeah, it's still valid, and it is complete, except that we know a lot more about the human being today than we did 600 years ago. So I don't claim to have any clear wisdom on what the fifth suit is or should be. Okay, I make no claim about that. I think the people who developed the fifth Tarot are very courageous in what they did, and it's obviously alive because it's generated this conversation among many others. And when I say I think that the fifth suit is the modern human being. I'm giving my opinion now. When we talk about how it will be codified, it's going to be codified when tarot readers all over the world for the next 100 years or 200 years talk about this issue. And finally, there is a consensus about what it means. Okay. And so, the interesting thing about like herbal medicine or acupuncture, let's take acupuncture. Okay. Acupuncture has been around for probably 3,000 years or so. And why has it been around for 3,000 years? Because it works. Okay. And so a medical doctor can use whatever methods that they learn in medical school and in their residency and so on. And yet an acupuncturist or an Ayurvedic doctor can come in with something else that's completely different and very useful to your situation. And the medical doctors will say, well, no, because I didn't learn that in medical school, or it's not in the medical journals. Well, but they've never compared it to the right method. For example, I currently need a new hip. Okay. And one way to control the pain in my new hip is to have a cortisone shot every 3 months into my hip, into my joint. Okay. And that's what modern medicine does. But my wife was insistent that I talk to a palliative care doctor, a doctor that's more conversant with traditional medicines. And she came in and she said, you should try glucosamine chondroitin, which has been known for probably a couple hundred years. It has been used on livestock for all those years. And my parents, 30 years ago, they were maintaining 4 horses. And so those horses, they were giving glucosamine, and the glucosamine was helping the joints of the horses. So they started to take it, and they swore by it. And I said, well, okay, I'll think about it. Right. But now I'm hurting, and I got glucosamine last week, and lo and behold, my hip feels better, even though I haven't had my shot. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to go get a shot. And so I'm not saying that I would overthrow modern medicine for herbal medicine necessarily, but it does say that, there is truth there, and it has worked, and it's worked for thousands of years probably. And Ayurvedic medicine is like that. Raquel, go ahead.
No, I just think that today we are so much more connected to these types of knowledges, because it's not a secretive thing anymore. I think that even in tarot, I think there are so many different people right now that know about tarot and can contribute it. But 1 century ago was actually kind of like a sacred knowledge.
Yes.
And you had to be initiated in some group to actually have the access to this, to the cards and whatever they mean. And now, I think this is precisely why the tarot became such a living thing, because everybody now can access that and can understand their own life through those cards. It's not exclusive anymore.
Right.
So,
and they're quite different. Obviously, the King of Swords in the Starman is quite different from the King of Swords in the She-Wolf, and yet they're still on the same point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think though, as far as what we might call natural healing or herbal healing or all of that, I think this culture, which to say the Western one, has gotten away though from that tradition of sort of passing things along, or with in a family you have certain recipes, and these are what you do when you have a fever, or what you do when
Sure.
and that's the sort of home healing, rather than just jumping in an ambulance and going to a hospital, and then they're using allopathic medicine. I went to a Chinese doctor recently, which was on the advice of my Jungian therapist, because I was going from doctor to doctor for a variety of things that I didn't even understand what all of them were. But of course, a lot of it started with the eyes. And one of the most recent diagnoses, which I got this past Friday morning, is that the latest thing is that I have osteoporosis. And so many of these things, there's breathing and there's hydration, right? And those
Sure.
have been two very important things for my eyes.
Mhm.
The regular doctors didn't tell me that, but all the other doctors told me that, you have to have lots of liquids, you have to blink, and you have to yawn and get the oxygen in there. And it took away a lot of headaches to do that yawning.
Mhm.
And I've solved a couple of friends' migraine problems since I learned that. It's quite an extraordinary thing. But the osteoporosis thing, I had seen the Chinese doctor 2 weeks before, and the other doctors had told me I needed to lose weight. So they said, cut out, fatty cheeses and whole milk yogurt and, a bunch of other things that the Chinese doctor was like, no, flood your diet with that. And then a week later, I find out, oh, those are exactly the right things. So always when I bounce back and forth, which I have always done in my life, I've always bounced back and forth between allopathic and then the,
Mhm.
natural medicine. It's always the natural medicine that wins. They always, and it's more, it aligns with my intuitive responses also.
Right. Okay. So, you know, 300 years ago, if you'd had a hip like mine, you just would have sucked it up, right? You would have been in pain and you would have just sucked it up. And so we have modern medicine because now we can do things like heart transplants and stuff like that. And that doesn't come from herbal medicine. But at the same time, we have to understand that herbal medicine and this is about mental health too. Okay. Keep in mind that the sickness of the soul, the tarot actually is doing also what religion is doing in a different way. And it does it in an intermediate way. And religion is an intermediate way. It's beneath psychiatry. Let's say if you're really biologically unbelievably psychopathic, then chances are you need somebody to apply some medicine to you. But short of that, religions and things like the tarot and homeopathic solutions have worked and helped people around the world since forever. Okay, probably, we can go back to the Old Testament and find those things. And so so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about intermediate steps. I have so many young men that come to me and they say, I just want to know the truth. Well, the truth is that, you have to study this stuff and see how it applies to your life. And or if the palliative care doctor comes to your house, which she did, and she says, well, maybe you should try some glucosamine. You know, my orthopedic surgeon didn't say that. He never mentioned glucosamine. You know, my parents mentioned it to me 30 years ago, but I never heard it from an orthopedic surgeon. So, you know, you have to look at all the things, and we don't need drugs to get to a state. Okay, a lot of young people think they need an opioid in order to get to some mental state. Oh my God, I took one oxycodone after a certain surgery that I had about 4 weeks ago, and I was going boom. I couldn't sleep for about 36 hours after that. And so I don't want that feeling like that. I just want to feel like my normal self that at least tries to sleep every night. And so, you know, you got to make your own judgment, I guess, is the answer. I'm going to shut up.
Well, by getting in touch with your inner being and connecting your inner awareness with your outer reality, then that starts to happen in a more truthful way.
Yeah, sure it does. And
It just doesn't come out of the ethers. You know, and nowadays we have so many, we're flooded actually. So they have to choose one. I could recommend the Finder's course so that, or read Jeffrey Martin's Finder's book or something like that.
Yeah.
And his course, or 45 Days to Awareness, gives you like 30 methods to try, and he's researched them all over the world, top methods, breathing and getting in touch, you know. So then you learn that you learn a map to navigate your inner map in order to
absolutely.
help you make decisions in the outer world. But if you depend only on the outer world, that's tricky business.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, it's like religion versus Jungian psychology. Okay, so when I get into a funk, my go-to solution is to pick up any book of Jungian psychology and start reading it at any point randomly. And because I've done so much reading in it now over almost 35 years, that, you know, it plugs me into the whole body of knowledge. And so it's the same as a religion, where if you go to church and, you know, over a 35-year period, you get to know most of the major stories in religion. They repeat them every year in a cycle so that you hear them all the time. And so when you get into trouble and you go into the church and you pray, and, you know, you can have faith that something that you've learned in that narrative is going to come back to you and bring you out of your funk. It works, but you have to have faith. And so for me, as Jungian of sorts, an unqualified Jungian, I have faith in myself. I have faith in the 2 million, or the 2 million year old man, as Jung put it. I call it the 3.5 billion year old man. But I believe in what's natural within myself to tell me what is the proper thing. And I've been saved by that many, many times. But it's a question of learning how to communicate with the self and to hear what the self is saying, and to also petition the self to help me. That's what the Lord's Prayer is. The Lord's Prayer is 7 petitions to the self. Okay. And there's actually, I did 6 hours of presentation on this a couple of years back, which is on the YouTube channel. So I'm not going to get into it in depth now, but, our Father who art in heaven, well, heaven is not exactly what it was sold in Christianity over the last 2,000 years. Heaven is something else. It's a combination of the individual psyche and the collective unconscious, and something metaphysical too. We don't know. We can't say, but anyway, it's there. And if I ask for help, I will get help. Okay. And I used to do it naturally. When I was going to school in high school, I'd say, Heavenly Father, please give me help with, to do my best on this test. I didn't pray for a good grade. I prayed that my Heavenly Father would make me do my best. Okay. And that's what the self can do. Okay. That's what your self can do. It can help you do your best in a certain situation. And so there's a difference between belief that somebody else fed you over however many years that you have gone to religion, and there's faith. And the faith is, whatever you want to call it, something does come to your aid in circumstances like that. And in the case of a football game where everybody's a fundamentalist and everybody's praying for help in the football game, well, I guess the 11 guys who prayed best won, something like that,
I would share that for example, because of our incredible industrial age, we've lost touch of the humanity that is the ultimate machine. For example, the Greeks, and this has been cataloged, they would have these temples and dream priests. So the person would go and they would be in this temple for a few days, and they would have to dream their according to the dreams. They would dream their healing, what it was they had. It will come up in the dreams. So here we go back to the individuation, that the self knows, with a big S. The self knows what's going on. It's not hidden, and it doesn't lie. It is there. So,
Right.
but how
So-
do you access it? So dreams is a way in which you go directly into it. So
Right.
it's good to have a mentor when it comes to that.
No
But
doubt.
I've used it so many times because I write my dreams, and you can heal through connecting with your psyche, because it commands,
Sure you
that
do. And
it's a
you
perfect
pick-
machine
You
that
pick
it
up
knows.
any tarot book, and like an 8th grade student, start to read the meanings of the cards you're putting down in a pedantic form. Start reading the cards that way, just reading it out of the book, and it will have an influence on you. It does influence you. Now, I do want to answer one question that's on YouTube, because Justin Cases says that I wish I could take a drug to learn Spanish, Arabic, Russian, or whatever language. And so, Justin, I do have some experience in learning languages, including Chinese, Japanese, and Arabic, especially, also French to a degree. And what I would say is that the best program that I know of is the Pimsleur program, which is simply listen to and repeat for 30 minutes a day in whatever language. And they do it exactly the same way in every language. They start out in the same way. And I've taken Arabic and Spanish from their system, and I could learn in 3 months what it took me a year to learn in Chinese in Defense Language Institute, which is a professional language training program. So I would urge you to if you want to learn a language, go to the Pimsleur, but it works best if you're actually using the language on any given day. If you, unfortunately, I took the Pimsleur course for Arabic 3 times, and it sort of has gone away because I did it after I'd done all my travel to Arabia. So it wasn't much help in that way, but I did become fluent in Arabic at one point, and I became fluent in Chinese at one point, but that was more than 50 years ago. So
I would add to your nice method, something that is used by mystical people in India, that let's say you read it before you go. It's kind of hypnotic.
mhm,
You read it before you go to bed, and you can read it out loud or listen to your Pimsleur and speak it too. Both things reinforce it just
Mhm.
before you're dozing to go to sleep. And
Yep.
when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do without thinking about anything else, you read it again, that same lesson.
mhm,
And within no time, your body, your memory is memorized for you.
Yep.
You do not have to even try to memorize it. It becomes memorized.
Right.
Within 21 days, or something, it becomes memorized. And you don't even have to try,
Yeah.
because
So
you're doing it under, you're putting it right into your unconscious, and it registers.
yeah, and actually, the reason we're here is because this lady behind me, who's hidden behind my cloaking.
Deb,
Yes,
we
Deborah.
haven't seen Deb in a while.
Well, she's here, and she's hidden behind my cloak. Okay, but anyway, Deb, the reason we're here is because in 1985, Deb and I became the first couple in the world, as far as we know, to meet online and marry. And one of the reasons we met online and started to communicate was that Deb had listed Japanese as one of her interests, and that she could speak Japanese. And I had lived in Japan for 8 years, and run a company there, set up 2 manufacturing operations, and so on. And so I've had many Americans approach me and say, "Oh yeah, I can speak Japanese," and I say something to them, and they go, "Huh?" It's like that, and they're not really there. And so I said something in Japanese to Debbie on an email on August the 22nd, 1985. And she responded to me in Japanese, and that sent me to my dictionary, and then I knew I was in trouble. And the rest is history. And,
Her Dakini knew what's going on.
right, and she's been hearing this, so I'm going to allow her to make further comment if she wants. I'm going. What, Debbie? What is your comment?
Sorry, I'm kind of busy right now.
Oh, she's busy. Story of my life.
Yeah, have fun.
Okay. Anyway. What could I say? Okay. Well, the reason Jordan Hoggard was not here tonight and last week is that he is moving from Philadelphia to Taos, New Mexico. And so tomorrow morning, he's going to get in a truck very early in the morning, and he's going to start driving across the country with his possessions. And so I'm hoping that he will emerge and give us the benefit of his wisdom as well. Again, perhaps in a week. We'll
Did
see.
he share the nature of his cross-country chain location? Philadelphia, he outgrew Philadelphia? Or?
I did not, I sort of asked, but I don't think he responded. Okay,
Oh.
but I think he has the West in his youth. His both parents were from Texas. He grew up in Texas. He spent a lot of time in New Mexico and Denver and places like that. And so, and I think he has no partner per se in Philadelphia. And so I think his father died recently, and his mother is still around in North Texas. So I think he just wanted to be a bit closer to his mother. That's my understanding. But anyway, and Patrick says he's moving to Mexico. No, he's not moving to Mexico. He's moving to New Mexico. That's part of the United States. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big move. Yes, it is. And so I'm sure we'll hear more about that in coming weeks. Annabelle, did we cover your numinosity for the week? Can't hear you with your mute on.
Sorry. And also I wasn't here last week. So no, not at all.
Not at all.
But I will say something, on this subject of inner knowing and all, and then outer receiving direction and guidance. That's come up a lot of ways, and one way was from the last class that I attended 2 weeks ago, when Raquel and I had a little exchange in the chat, and I mentioned that I had been drawing 2 tarot cards a day. I felt I'd been in this class long enough. I've been unpacking, and I discovered that I had a Rider Waite deck, which I didn't even remember. I had bought a Marseille deck for this class, but in unpacking, I haven't unpacked the Marseille yet, but I unpacked that. Anyway, I just thought, okay, I can just pull 2 cards, seem more interesting than pulling one. I was pulling 2 cards, and last week, Raquel and I had an exchange about, 2 weeks ago. I don't remember what the cards were. I'm not sure if you remember, Raquel, but I made a little comment about how I had interpreted them, and Raquel had a completely different view. Oh, I know. I said, oh, it was great. Gosh, now I almost remember. There were 2 major arcana cards too, and they were from the Saturday. And
I think one of them was the star, wasn't it?
Might have been. Yeah. Because I was doing it every day, so that's also hindering my memory. But I remember that Saturday was a big day, and I thought these 2 cards I had drawn had something to do with that sort of, 3-dimensionality of it, if you could call it that. And Raquel was like, those cards don't sound so great. Then the following Wednesday, and that kind of threw me off a little. I thought, oh, so I'm not really ready to draw cards and interpret at all. But I spoke with my Jungian therapist about that. And I said, well, which way does it work? I'm not a tarot reader, but I'm learning something about the cards. And she recommended that an interpretation from someone else did have more validity than however I was seeing the cards. And that has turned out to be the case with the doctors of the last 2 weeks, which has been a GI tract RN, a optometrist who the ophthalmologist sent me to, who said all your glasses prescriptions are wrong, the Chinese medicine doctor, and then this most recent where they did a bone density scan, and then they had these pictures and they said, look what we've found. Anyway, so that kind of back and forth. And one thing it makes me reflect on is how the times in my life when I've been very sick, one way or another, and the worst was a my back kept going out and I was in traction. I had a rest cure. It lasted about 9 months and it was really, I had to learn how to walk again. It was a restart of my life. But every time I've ever had, you know, kind of serious flu, I had the coronavirus early. It was a good moment. I mean, you know, in retrospect, and even sometimes while I was sick, I thought, oh, great. I'm stuck in bed or I'm, you know, whatever. And for example, the 1,000 cranes that I made when I was in traction, it was such an incredibly beautiful hit. Now, if you would have told me just lie in bed and make 1,000 cranes for 3 weeks, I would have been, you're crazy. But when the doctor said, we're going to put you in this bed, we're going to strap you in, you can't get out. And like, you know, do you need anything? And I was like, yeah, give me piles of origami paper. Like, what else? What else could I possibly need, right? Anyway, there's so I'm learning a lot in that, on that side, right? I'm trying to balance between the listening for guidance and then what I think I know is going on. And incidentally, I gave notice at my job a week ago Monday, which they did not accept. And they said, go ahead and, you know, work however long you want. Because I said, you know, I'm giving you 2 weeks notice. And they said, and then we're going to pay you for 2 more weeks and then come back to us. And if you still want to quit, we'll accept it. So, yeah, the universe has been giving me a lot of, you know, I can go and think something is going to be one way. Like when I went to the Chinese doctor, I thought he was going to diagnose in one area of my life, and it turned out he diagnosed a completely different area.
Sounds very much like what Deb told me this morning, that she has been doing a number of mantras to achieve a certain goal in Tibetan Buddhism. And today she crossed the 200,000 mark, which is halfway to the objective. She's been working on this objective since last August. I've known that she was meditating and saying mantras, but I didn't know that she had an objective of how many? 400,000 mantras.
For that one, Amitabha's million.
But are you doing meet about it? What are you doing?
Amitabha, yeah, but I'm only about 150,000 along on that one.
But what's the one with?
Vajrasattva.
Oh, she's doing Vajrasattva, which is what, 400,000.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's doing Vajrasattva, which is 400,000, and I think like doing 1,000 suru, which is what the cranes are.
Yes.
You will no doubt learn a lot of things about yourself.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and I was only 22 when I did that.
Hold on. What?
Ultimately, I'm trying to get to the point where there's no one to do the math.
Oh. Did you hear that?
There's no one to do them anymore. Is that what she said?
No, she's trying to get to the point where there's no one to do the math.
Oh, well, in my experience, and I used to do them all the time. I mean, I used to get on the back of a motorcycle, friend, and go all day long traveling all over the Northeast. And my big joy was that with this wind and sun and so on, I had a mala and I went at it all day long, riding in that bike. And it's different eventually. And this is my other experience with Hinduism. They do themselves. They just, and you can hear them. They do themselves. They're there doing it. And then I also experienced the mantra situation where when during sleep, before going to sleep or in that hypnagogic state, if you do the mantras and you go all the way down to the center with, for example, Vajra Sattva rules. I know it's white. I don't know which family it is. You know, I got this. Then you start it. The sound becomes a key inside of you.
Mm,
and then you open these portals, and it's just my experience. I'm just sharing my experience,
yeah,
and I
no,
found
you're
out
right.
that the amount wasn't relevant as being in the dark when you're going inside into the empty space. Let's say Buddhists understand that, and hearing the sound really inside, letting it it comes alive, just like the tarot.
This is my mala.
Oh, you've got the skulls. Yeah, I have one of those too. I used to make them. I have these most beautiful malas that I created, and one of them actually comes from Garchen Rinpoche.
Oh, well, Debbie works
She
with
must know
her.
Garchen Rinpoche.
Oh, yeah.
I've been
she's
to
great.
his retreat center in Arizona, and from him got a yellow one
Uh-huh.
from big beads, and then I restrung it because it was falling apart, and it's really a work of art.
Mhm. Yeah, why, this is a $5 mala.
Oh,
But-
well, I make them. I used to make them with all kinds of, you know, gemstones,
Oh, okay.
meaning like carnelians or lapis for if you needed a blue one, or the transparent one, So I researched all kinds of stones and found out how nowadays a lot of them were not real. They were made in the lab from
Mhm.
seeds.
Yeah, well, this is not real human heads either.
No, but it could be made out of bone. And if
Uh,
it's, it could be
yeah,
made out of
no.
bone. And thank God there's no more. And the ivory thing with the elephant, that one was a biggie one.
No, this is made out of molded plastic.
Oh,
I can-
molded plastic. Yeah.
I can assure you it's made out of molded plastic.
Mm. I can. I mean, I have all different colors, and I created them all. I made them
Mhm.
myself, and
Good
had
for
them
you.
blessed, and went on with the mantras endlessly. But we've moved on from that, and realized that using it which is one a nun, Tibetan Buddhist nun from the Kagyu once told me. I said, yeah, because I have rattled on all these mantras endlessly. And she said, but like when you're in retreat in one of those small houses and so on, that you do prostrations and mantras, then you're so concentrated inwardly, then the benefit is completely different. So I always remember that, and discovered that since I work with dreams now, that before going to sleep, when you can sense it, like lucid dreaming. You can sense it.
Yeah.
It's like you're awake inside your body.
Yep.
And the sound mantras are related to sound keys. The sound goes and it's alive, and you can just do one mala and whew, and
Yeah.
you're just about to go into the deepest delta states and so on. So it grabs like a lot more powerful than me rattling mantras for 8 hours behind in a motorcycle, riding
Sure.
a motorcycle. But that's my personal experience, and I appreciate that. There's these all other kinds of methods that count, and a lot, because that creates a field, and that
Right.
field multiplies and becomes powerful.
Yep.
But my experience with that is that it became powerful for my being to be able to help others. I got to be able to help myself, and bringing it inwardly. Dream state is the last of the Mohicans for me, individuation, and bringing that before you go to sleep, saying those sounds are completely powerful. They just go right to the source.
Yep.
And you find all kinds of things. You say, oh, they bump against complexes that are there and energetically, and they bump here and they bump. I mean, it's like a live being inside, and it shows you things, and it moves around and all of that. So it is alive and it is powerful, and that's how I have discovered that works really well. And I'm
Yeah.
a modern person, so I just incorporated into the 2021st.
Well, I'll give you a practical example of my experience. There's a Tibetan Buddhist mantra called the 100-syllable mantra. It's for healing.
Yes, we know it. It's very beautiful.
Right. And what I found is that if I said that mantra while the dentist was doing root canal work on my mouth, that, it was cool. I just wasn't there at all. I mean, he did put Novocaine in, but, I've never particularly liked the fact that I'm conscious there, even if I can't feel it. But if a mantra is a mind protector. That's one of its roles. And so if you are saying a mantra, it's hard to have your mind on something else that isn't quite so pleasant. Like, oh, they're about to cut off your leg and put a new hip in there.
You might
Yeah.
try saying that 100-syllable mantra, since you already are familiar with the sound and what it means, when you're already going down to sleep in that hypnagogic state.
Well,
Before you go to sleep, you just shut your eyes and get going. And
Yeah,
with your
if you-
mala in your hand, and you will experience and intend to go to your hip, find out what's going on, talk to your hip, ask it what it wants. You understand? You go in there and you will receive answers that you never
Absolutely.
thought.
Absolutely. And I find sometimes I'm wired at night, very, very hyper or something. Very often after we've had one of these long sessions and I can't go to sleep.
And I forgot the other two kinds of doctors I've been to in just the last couple of weeks.
Which
4
are?
hours of root canal, and then 3 hours of putting the crown on that they thought it was going to be a half an hour, and it turned into 3.
You need to learn the 100-syllable mantra.
Yeah, no, but I have a prayer that's in both Sanskrit and English, which I learned many years ago from my Tibetan teacher, and I've used it in many circumstances. I think I even talked here about how I had a 3-hour MRI, and I mostly just repeated that, and the technician was quite astounded at my, calm and peace of mind, both when he would check in on me. How are you doing? I'm fine, And then when I came out, I was just completely relaxed. And he recognized, he said, you must have been in some kind of meditative state. And I said, yeah, actually I was.
Yep, that's what I do when I'm in a
Great,
MRI. It happens too often these days.
Right.
But
Yeah.
anyway, okay, so I'm starting radiation treatment on the 15th of June. So we'll see how my energy holds up for the rest of the summer.
Ask your body what it wants.
Yeah, I'm going to
Go in there every day with that mantra before you go to sleep, and
going
when you
to-
wake up.
I'm going
And
to
then-
set it into intention that you won't be able to notice that that anything's happening.
And it will
But,
guide you. It will guide you, maybe, and then since Deb is connected, she'll know, or maybe you need to take this or that or whatever it is.
right.
So
Righto. Okay, so
and I wanted to say something you said about the fifth element in the tarot and so on.
yep.
The Buddhists have 5 families in their pantheon. So there you have it. It's right there as a 5th.
It's
pie,
already there, so
there
it's
is-
emerging.
It's
It's-
been there all along.
Yep.
Now, that 5th one would be the center space, So they just allocate, they have a being for that. I forget
Yeah.
all the ones. I mean, I have Dorja Drolo. Can you imagine? I have a tank of Ring Tara and Dorja Drolo. It's so, and whenever I bring it up, things start happening. So I put it back in because Dorja Drolo is the wrathful
Right.
of Padma Sambhava, the father. Okay. So I used to like it wrathful, but we've had so much wrathfulness that
Yeah.
bring the wrathful deities. It's rolled up in the
Yeah, we've had them floating around in our collective unconscious for a while now. And that's, I'm waiting for more people to learn to learn a few mantras. When we have the whole country saying mantras, we'll be okay.
Yeah, and there's so many, and they resonate like it's a resonance like biofield tuning.
Mhm.
Like, and
Sure.
I will share. I think I shared it before. Jeffrey Thompson. You can find a doctor. Also, many Jeffreys.
Mhm.
Dr. Jeffrey. He's a chiropractor and a sound engineer, and he has all this bio tuning with he can heal people. Why don't you go see him? He heals people. He's amazing. He'll tell you all kinds of what's off, and he uses the sound to 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 create homeostasis in your brain, in
Mhm.
your connections, and then your body knows would heal itself. He's
Yeah.
very successful, and he's been around forever, and
But
he knows a
in
lot. And
modern
with
medicine,
he will,
mostly
yeah.
doctors are calling on your body to heal itself.
Oh, yeah,
Actually,
well, if you could see him, oh my goodness, you could shoot him an email if Jeffrey, he's in California, if you go and fly and see Tim Holmes, you certainly can fly and see Jeffrey. He's extremely knowledgeable and up to date on all science.
Mhm.
Jeffrey Thompson, you can find them on neuroscience, blah, blah, blah. You can find him on Facebook and then check out his other sites. He has a neuroscience link. He's connected to all of it. And he's been saying this forever, but the allopathic medicine that deals with medicines, and he doesn't. And he's had all kinds of experiences that people just go and when you twitch the right, and I used to have visit a Siddha doctor in India who did the same thing, but he did it differently. He would stick his finger and say, well, what is he doing? What he's doing is moving around where there's stuckness. So the flow of all your systems from nervous to this and that can flow. And when it flows, then it goes and heals itself where it needs to. But when something's blocked, then it aggravates till kingdom come, and kingdom never come. You get sick.
Right.
So you
Well,
might try Dr. Jeffrey Thompson if you could.
He's a cousin of mine, actually.
Jeffrey Thompson is a cousin of yours?
Yeah, because
And you don't go visit Jeffrey Thompson? Are you kidding me?
well, he's a distant cousin, but my paternal grandmother was a Thompson.
Oh my goodness, he's incredible. You should put him to the test. Just put him to the test and see.
We'll see how much energy I have. I have many people.
But he might have such an impact that you don't need to crowd your body with so many chemicals.
Oh, well, I'm not crowding my body with chemicals, really.
I know.
Not.
But if he's your cousin, give him a chance.
Well, I'm being facetious because he has to be a distant cousin, right?
Yeah, his ancestors are from somewhere in Scotland or something.
Yeah, Sweden, I think.
Yeah, up there. So it's up there close to
right.
the peninsula of the
right.
Slava, the
Yeah,
Norwegians and the Swedes.
that was my grandmother's
And
origin.
he's in perfect health, pretty much, and he's in his 70s.
Well, I'm in my 70s, so.
Okay, so you'll understand him perfectly. You can catch, he has many videos you can watch. He puts on one every Sunday at 3:30 Eastern.
Yeah. Well, people keep giving me videos to watch, and
I'm busy
and-
making them.
and I'm busy making them. I'm
know.
in the business of trying to convey something outward. But anyway, it's not a bad thing. And Gilda, I appreciate it. I will look for Jeffrey Thompson, and I
Yes,
will be in
please.
touch with you.
Yes, it might
yeah.
change your life
And
in great ways, we hope.
and
He knows something about a lot of things.
yeah,
He's
and
really been
let me
around for
just
a
say
long
that
time.
I had a reading with Raquel Fonseca about, I don't know, a month or so ago, a little more than that maybe now. And it was truly terrific and a really great experience. So
Oh, good.
I recommend to people that you try different tarot readers, but Raquel is accessible. And although she lives in Brazil, she's accessible and payable and all those things. So
We've been playing all the time.
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Warming them up.
Right.
And by the way, Annabelle, we take out 3. You might want to do 3 versus 2, because that way you have a relationship. You have one,
Oh,
you
that's a good
realize,
suggestion.
and you activate, it becomes active.
And also what can be phenomenally scary is, let's say you get a card that you don't like. You can put another card down. You can put another card down on that card and see what the relationship of the two is. And if you don't like that one, you can keep doing it. But what gets really scary is when you got 15 cards there on the same position on the reading. All of a sudden it gets incredibly numinous and uncanny.
Yeah.
You won't believe how much it touches you, right?
Yes.
Raquel, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
two I felt were kind of bouncing off of each other, and one kind of moderating the other on most days I only did it about 10 days, and then I think I got a little bit freaked out after my speaking with my Jungian therapist. I mean, I think I went about 2 more days, and then I thought maybe I better just step back and probably just have a reading, that someone else does, like Raquel.
It takes a while to embody a deck of to embody and constellate a particular deck. So to use one constantly for a while until you constellate something with that.
Yeah. Well, it was a process. It was like a further step in learning the cards. And also I would go back to my notes, because I keep notes in all of our classes. So I would sort of cross-reference there, do a search and see what I could find that would.
Well, and you need a silk scarf for your cards, right? You have to clear the energies in the cards each time.
Oh.
Like this. This is my extra large deck.
Oh, so I wrapped them.
And what kind of deck is it?
It's a Rider Waite deck, but it's extra large.
All 78 cards are extra large?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wait a minute, let me get rid of my
It's for a big boy. A big boy has extra large cards.
well, I used them outside for people that wanted to have an outside reading.
Oh, and online so they can see the actual picture.
So here's.
Oh, they're not that huge.
Well, they're pretty big though. I mean, here's a regular deck.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And here's my big deck.
And there's so many different versions of that deck. Which is the one you think it's the cleanest, nicely rendered, that doesn't do strange things that
Well,
Pamela Coleman Smith didn't do back when she created it? Which one would you say is?
Well,
because
the U.S. Games one is the best one, but so here's
there's a commemorative deck, the commemorative version. That's the one I was looking at.
yeah, I think their copyright is now gonzo, but anyway,
Oh, yeah.
then you have to,
You wrap it in your cloth.
yeah, you have to clear the energies from the cards, and then you have to protect the cards by putting it in a silk scarf. It has to be silk.
Oh, it has to be silk.
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
It has to be silk to
And that's
protect.
72 cards or just
No,
the
it's
major arcana?
No, it's 78 cards.
Oh, 78. Wow, it doesn't look that thick.
Well, it's thick enough. I mean, wait a minute. I'll pull it out once more just so you can see it. But I have a killam. You know what a killam is?
What, the
Killam.
Scottish thing?
No, a killam is no. You're
A
thinking
rug?
of a kilt. No, a killam is a Turkish. Rug.
Yes, a Turkish rug. It's very thin. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Very nicely. Yeah.
And so, but this is the full deck, right?
And the colors are not are okay. They're not like over jarring or anything.
No, they're the same as.
Because sometimes the fool has red shoes and sometimes it doesn't.
Oh,
So
I don't know.
Does yours have red shoes?
I don't know. We'll have to look if you can.
So I don't
wait.
understand that sometimes it has red shoes, and so some things that people, some in the pages, sometimes they have red shoes and then other times they don't. Did she
Okay,
put
well-
red shoes on or?
Well, okay. You've just asked a Stump the Stars question, so
Yeah, I'm very particular about
you have to give me a moment to go through up to 78 cards to find my fool. I'm finding everything else here, but I mean, this is just as far as I know, this is just a standard Rider Waite deck, but it's.
But none of them are standard anymore. There's always some other tweak that's going on.
I see. Okay. Well, I have to admit that I got this deck 25 years ago.
Oh, so 25 years ago, they weren't, maybe the copyright was still going. So you probably have the real thing.
I don't know.
Mhm.
It says
Yeah, that's about how
copyright
mine is.
1971.
Yeah, but
US
copyright,
Games.
You have to go by the IBSN number because copyright is this.
Yeah, but I mean that copyright.
So you've
is-
had it for 25 years?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So let me see the full
and-
or the pages and what color of shoes.
Well, just a minute. I'm looking for the fool, and I haven't found him yet.
When Skip, you can keep looking. I use selenite wands actually to clean up the cards.
Oh,
What do what is
selenite,
it?
the
Gel-
stone,
Selenite. Yeah.
the white stone.
Yeah.
Right. White stone.
Oh,
I'll have to get myself what? Gelinite wand. Okay.
Selenite.
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 Yeah.
SELENITE. Right? I believe so.
I
Selenite.
think
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
Selenite, and E at the end.
I found him. He was buried down about 60 cards, but he has yellow shoes.
Oh, you see? Right. And you remember that we had some when we were exploring, they had red shoes on.
Yeah.
And redness underneath the sleeves. So we were all going about the red, meaning this, done the other thing. And in reality, it never had red. So that was very peculiar.
Yeah. Okay.
One gets confused because it wasn't designed that way.
Yeah. But you can get to greater depth by thinking about these various things.
Yeah.
and
Mine
yeah,
is yellow shoes too.
you have
Okay.
yellow shoes too.
And yours is how
Yeah.
old?
Mine is about, it's about 30 years old.
Yeah. mhm.
Which is one reason
We-
I forgot that I had it.
Yeah.
Right. So then that's, I think the new commemorative edition is
And it's
like
that
that.
same box and it says copyright 1971.
hmm
Mhm.
Yeah, that looks like the same deck.
Yeah. There
Right.
is a number that says WR78. I wonder what
Gears
that
have yellow shoes also. Yeah, I saw them with red
Yeah.
shoes. So
But anyway,
How-
this is handy. This
Mm.
is handy to have if you want to do a reading for somebody outside, because then you can spread your kiln on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
I like to have those in black, so it doesn't, because when it's pictured like that, it distracts from the pictures of the actual cards. The
Oh,
Mythic Tarot came with a black cloth
mhm.
and with a Celtic,
Huh.
just barely outlined. And I would take that and wrap it, and that went into the bag and everywhere else. And so black is good because it withstands dirt and it doesn't interfere with the
Yeah.
images.
Now, to our friends on the internet, we still have 12 people listening to us.
Oh, they
amazingly.
like our conversations.
What I would like to say is that none of this makes any never mind from a rational point of view. Okay. In other words, if you're going to use the scientific method and the rational perspective, it doesn't make any difference. Okay. However, if you're doing work with the tarot cards, you're immediately going to do things in the irrational. And when you do things, there you go, exactly.
See,
And
Mythic Tarot,
I
30 years old.
got this nice one with the gold tassel. See the gold tassel that came with my soul.
See how
Splendor
worn they are?
Solace.
They're all worn.
Yeah.
See?
Um,
Raquel,
but-
this is your favorite.
it starts to
one I
make a
use.
difference. It starts to make a difference.
Let me see. What is it that you have there?
Oh, this is my Ouroboros.
Oh, Ouroboros. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
You
nice.
see.
Deb gave it to you as a present.
Yep, for Christmas.
It's beautiful.
It's a prized possession.
It's very
Yeah.
beautiful. What is the metal?
I have no idea, but it seems quite hearty.
That's good. And it doesn't rust.
Hasn't yet, so I normally wear it like this, so that it's counterclockwise
Ah,
to, if I hold my fist out, you see it counterclockwise around my wrist.
well, you know that dragons are in the Chinese and so on, that they are big agents of change.
Well, and they're very lucky. Right.
Did I
Big-
tell you the story of a dragon I have a dragon about I don't know, 2 feet tall or
Really?
2.5 feet tall, gold carved, made out of wood.
Hmm.
You know, those Bali ones.
Terrific.
And there are some rituals that go with it. And I was staying in the house in a mountain surrounded by trees, and I did this ritual, and I changed everything in the corner, and I even added a mirror behind it to make it glow, because it's lucky, right? So I wanted to change my reality. And even if you drape pearls on it, you know, they're even Majorca pearls or whatever. And I finished, and I did this whole thing. I put it on top of a Chinese desk. I made this beautiful corner. And by the time I finished, a windstorm ensued only around this house, and
Oh,
all the
boy.
way down the mountain across the street to the flea market. All the stands were in the middle of the road upside down.
Oh,
The trees swayed, and a huge tree about 2 feet wide like this, right in the middle. It was on top of a mountain, right? So the road that went up and down, a truck had to come, a tractor, to remove that tree for me to be able to again go down in my car. And that only happened in that area. It happened by activating this dragon in the ritual, which the feng shui, feng shui.
Yep.
Yeah, I did the feng shui thing, and so
Yep. Well,
yes, they're very
dragons.
powerful.
Yep.
Very powerful.
Traditionally, Chinese farmers, when they saw, when they're out in the middle of a rice field for 50 years, it gets kind of boring. So they would look at the clouds and see different shapes in them, of course.
Oh
And
yes.
when they saw dragon clouds, then they knew that rain was coming.
Oh.
And that's why it's lucky. That's why dragons are so lucky in
But
China.
the Chinese water is in the north area, and the north is associated with water, and the color is black. So the Chinese, because of for them, water is kind of like black but for example, a Viking, water is, they're like we're masters of the ocean. So it
Sure.
depends on what country deals with what.
Yeah. So anyway, Raquel has said in the chat here that everybody, I need to go because here it's midnight and I need some sleep. And that's nothing compared to Justin. For him, it's Dracula time. What? Same publisher. He says all UK and US works published before 1936 are in the public domain. No copyright issue. Rider Waite was published in 1909 by Rider on an imprint of Penguin Random House Abury Division. Well, I agree with that, Justin, that, putting a copyright symbol on anything is cold comfort, because, I will always claim that I have a fair use right to use your whatever you write anyway. And so, and the problem is if you have a copyright, let's say for that, and you want to sue somebody, you're going to spend $1 million or $2 million probably suing somebody, and they won't have any money anyway. So if you win, they'll go bankrupt and you still won't get anything. And so, copyright's just not what it's cracked up to be.
Unless you're in that business.
Well, if you're in the business of selling people on the idea that copyrights are important, yes, it's important then. But if you're in the business of talking about a deck of cards that has a 1971 copyright, and the copyright was no doubt already pretty close to being invalid then. But, obviously, U.S. Games didn't have a right to put a new copyright on dated 1971 when the first, as Justin says, the first deck came out in 1909. So,
oh wow,
so the 1971 copyright is totally meaningless. But this doesn't change the fact that I recommend that everybody have a Rider Waite deck because
yes, it's a master deck, no doubt.
Yeah. And so for any beginner, it's absolute necessity.
And I doused it, and it's because it was created by practitioners.
Yeah. So Annabelle, you moved to New Jersey, is that right?
Yeah, that was beginning of January and beginning of February. Mm-hmm.
So you're still in striking distance of a job in Manhattan or something?
Yes, but I've been working remotely, and yeah, I've already had several interviews for my next job, which looks like it's coming through anyway. It's just
oh, good.
an interesting process of leaving the last one. I'm in striking distance of 70. That's what's important. And when I'm 70 and then I start collecting Social Security, my picture of what working is going to be like is going to change. I've had very few full-time on-staff salary jobs in my life because I've been self-employed, working for foreign companies, doing various things, freelance, that, but now I'm fully committed to amping up my Social Security payments after age 70. So I've been doing that for about 8 years now, as much as it's been possible to do that.
Well, we have all been in striking distance of 70, but I'm on the wrong end of that.
You're on the other end. Yeah, I'm on this end. Yeah.
That's to be appreciated, every minute of it.
Yes.
I can say.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, we were talking about Raquel being up at midnight, and just in case, it must be like 5 or 6 in the morning now. So Justin, I don't know how you make a living, but you probably better go get some sleep.
Yeah.
And so peace, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Next week. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Take care now.
What's next
Bye-bye.
week?
Bye-bye.
Oh, what's next week?
You'll tell us.
Well, I think we'll move on to the coins next week.
Oh, Pentacles. And that'll be court cards of coins.
Yeah, that's right. The Court of Coins of Pentacles, the Court of Pentacles. The reason is, we can chew on all these bones forever, actually. Yes. And the purpose here is to try to put somebody of knowledge out that people can listen to and refer to. And, I have a tape of somebody that presents in 1 hour, they present the whole major arcana and the whole minor arcana. Wow. And you listen to it, and it is just, it's mind-blowing. It's not possible to get anything out of it. And that's why we've been doing this long form discussion, because you never know what you'll learn from these things.
Yeah, one of the most frequent cards that I got before giving notice.
the Eight of
and
Swords.
One of the inspirations to actually give notice was this card.
I believe it.
I don't know everything of what it means, but it sure spoke to me in relation to what was going on in my job front. I got it almost every day of those 10 days.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I was doing a good job of, sorting the cards and turning them up,
Right.
Well, your deck has been fermenting for 30 years. Imagine that.
It was getting ready. Yeah. It was
30-year fermentation. It's got to yield some gold.
It really was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Old stuff.
Okay. So.
Well, great.
Well seasoned. Okay. Have a good night. And don't forget to please check out Dr. Jeffrey Thompson and fly over to meet Dr. Jeffrey Thompson.
It's Thompson, not Townsend.
Thompson. Thompson.
Okay, he is my cousin then.
Yes, Dr. Jeffrey Thompson.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure you have something in common.
Well, I guess I'm going to California in around the first week of November.
Well, by that time you've already been through all these other things. So speak to him. Maybe you can get a conference call and say what's going on. He will tell you what he's able to do or not. He's not into. He's over 70 in his over 70s, and he's one of those.
Well, I'll contact him, Gilda, possibly for a wisdom path session. But I don't think I'm going to use him for my health care, because he's sort of attenuated. and I have loads of other people here trying to tell me what I have to do. but I will certainly look into it. I will certainly look into it.
Well, he has a channel just like you,
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll try
That-
to
and he
find
comes
out.
on every Sunday. Well, I can only make an offering.
No, I thank you for that. And I do, because of his complementary interests, I do want to follow up on that. But
Maybe it will ring your bells and you don't know it.
that's right. And, there's just so many hours in the day also.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
maybe a miracle and it will ring your bells.
yeah, one can hope. Peace. Take care.